The series opens with An, who works at an advertising company where she's responsible for escorting groups of visitors to shopping centers and introducing them to the store's promotions she's marketing. One day she's on a tour with her co-worker Moon-young, but An is late to the bus, and the driver and everyone on board leaves without her. So she has to chase after them on foot. On the way, she runs into the driver, who asks what happened. She tells him he pulled away without her, and he says he thought she'd already gotten on. An doesn't dwell on it and sprints to the visitor's meeting point where Moon-young is. And the moment Moon-young sees her, she shoots her a contemptuous look and keeps talking to the group. Because she's so attractive, everyone's focused on Moon-young and clearly enjoying her presence. After that, the visitors disperse to shop on their own, and Moon-young tells them to regroup in an hour. There's also a festival called Secret Queen Makers, where whoever collects the most promotional stickers for the festival will become a candidate to win the Beauty Queen contest. Moon-young then turns to An, mocks her, and asks why the princess is late, but An doesn't respond, knowing Moon-young hates her and always bullies her. Moon-young steps closer and asks where An buys her clothes, saying there's no way she actually pays for outfits like that, and she must be getting them for free. An gets really upset, says she's going to the restroom, and walks off. Along the way, she keeps replaying Moon-young's words and admits to herself that, unfortunately, there's some truth there. Her taste in clothes is pretty terrible. She stops to look at herself in the mirror, tells herself she knows she isn't pretty, and glances at the girls around her, realizing how much more attractive they are. She thinks, fine, she knows her place and won't aim for anything more. She then sits alone on a bench, fiddling with her phone, when another girl suddenly sits right on her, as if she isn't there. The girl notices, apologizes, and says she wasn't paying attention and thought the seat was empty. An tells her not to worry. She's used to being invisible. This isn't the first time. Then lets the girl keep the spot and continues strolling through the mall. She gets into an elevator where there's a little boy. An smiles at him and plays along, but the child screams, cries, and tells her to stay away. His mother, surprised, asks if An did anything, and the boy blurts out that he doesn't like ugly women. An is stunned and humiliated, while the other passengers laugh and whisper about her looks. The mother apologizes, says her son is a bit too blunt, then corrects herself and adds that he's just a kid who says anything. An tells her it's fine, steps out of the elevator, and tries to hide from everyone, her confidence completely shattered. Suddenly, a very handsome young man bumps into her hard enough that she falls. He apologizes, helps her to a seat, and brings her something to drink. An tells him she probably scared him with how she looks and apologizes, but he doesn't understand why she'd say that about herself and insists he's the one who should be apologizing. He then picks up a card that fell from her, one for the Secret Queen Makers Festival, and An tells him he can keep it if he wants because she doesn't need it. He asks why she isn't going to enter the festival. She tells him she knows she has no chance of winning, so there's no way she'll humiliate herself. She knows her limits and won't compete in something she's not built for. The young man is genuinely moved, but before he can say anything, she gets a call from one of the tour visitors saying the festival stickers she collected were dropped. An apologizes to the guy, thanks him for the drink he bought her, grabs her bag, and hurries off. She meets the visitor and decides to give her some of the stickers she has, but when An tries to open her bag, which has a passcode, it won't open. She keeps trying until it suddenly hits her that she must have switched bags with the young man who bumped into her. She apologizes to the visitor and rushes off to find him, but he's no longer where she saw him. She runs through the mall with the bag, searching everywhere, and finally spots him. She sprints after him, only to see him head toward a passage no one else uses. Then she sees him stand before a seemingly solid wall and slip right through it with ease. An is stunned. She hurries over, touches the wall, finds it actually open, and steps inside. Suddenly, she's in a space parallel to the shopping mall. It's filled with world-famous women's beauty brands, and she hears ballet music playing. She sees a glass globe with a spinning ballerina inside, chiming a delicate tune. The moment she touches it, she knocks over a perfume bottle next to it. A young man nearby hears the noise, comes over, and asks what she's doing there and how she even got in. An panics and apologizes, and he asks if she's human. The question startles her. She bolts for the elevator, but as soon as she opens it, the same young man is standing there in front of her again. He asks if she really thinks she can run away from him, so An bolts in the opposite direction and hides under a chair. The young man appears right in front of her and tells her she can't just walk away that easily. She begs him to let her go, promising to pay for the perfume she broke. He says there's no way she could repay it. Surprised, An asks if it's really that expensive. He replies that the perfume is 100 years old. An snaps back that if it's that old, he should have kept it in a museum or somewhere safe. He then asks if she honestly doesn't know where she is. She she insists she truly doesn't. Suddenly, she freezes and blurts out a thought. Has she died? The young man laughs at her and tells her to come with him. An keeps pleading with him to tell her if she's dead, even asking him to say her name, so she can be sure she's the one whose life is ending and not someone else. Because in movies, they sometimes mix people up. He mocks her gently and says he's not the Grim Reaper, but a messenger of beauty. An is bewildered and starts to think he's crazy. She wants to run again, but finds herself rooted to the spot, unable to move, and has no choice but to follow him. Together, they arrive in a room full of magical mirrors, but An covers her face, unwilling to look. The young man asks why she won't look at herself. She explains that people look in mirrors to make themselves beautiful, but when she looks, she sees someone who could never be beautiful. He stops her in front of one of the mirrors, and the moment An looks into it, she finds herself transported into a memory from her past. While she's still inside the mirror's memory, An finds herself back in her school ballet class, sitting alone and sad. She opens the costume locker, decides to try on one of the dresses, puts it on, applies makeup, and looks at herself in the mirror, happy for a moment. She practices ballet steps until she suddenly falls to the floor, just as her classmates walk in and start mocking her dancing and appearance. From that moment on, An has hated looking in mirrors because every time she does, she recalls those looks of ridicule and sees herself as ugly the way they did. Suddenly, she snaps back to reality and asks the young man what just happened. He explains that anyone who looks into the magical mirrors relives their most painful memory, which is why she revisited that moment of fear and sadness. She asks him if she's seen him before, because he looks like a famous model. The young man asks why humans think that just because they see something, they're seeing the whole truth. An replies that's how it works. If someone's handsome, people automatically assume he's nice, rich, and has a great personality. He then asks why people compare themselves to each other and judge by the same standards even though everyone's criteria are different, acting as if judging others is life's purpose and ultimate goal. He tells her this is nothing but arrogance and pride, and goes on to say that humans themselves are the reason they drift away from the world. The young man quickly turns another mirror, and suddenly An finds herself back in the very first place she was after stepping through the wall. She asks him what just happened, and he explains that sometimes a person can remember something in vivid detail simply because its scent stayed imprinted in memory for a lifetime. Then he asks her how she wants people to remember her. An wonders if telling him her wish would actually make it come true. He tells her to choose the perfume she wants, so she picks two kinds and admits that she once wished she had a boyfriend to give one to. He asks if she's really wishing for a boyfriend. An says it would be nice, but what she really wants is a perfume that can make her be born all over again. The young man tells her that the perfume she broke was exactly meant to give her a new beginning, but recreating it would take another 100 years. Then he sprays her face with the perfume she chose and reminds her never to forget. Not everything you see is the whole truth. Suddenly, An wakes up to the sound of Moon Young mocking her, saying she thought An had fallen in the bathroom. An feels upset and assumes everything she saw was just a dream, until Moon Young suddenly asks if she's wearing perfume. An sniffs herself and realizes it wasn't a dream at all. She finds herself holding a secret Queen Maker's Festival sticker with the same young man's picture on it. Shocked, she rushes to the spot where the magical wall had been, but now it looks like nothing more than an ordinary wall. Then she pulls her bag toward it, and instantly she slips back into the parallel world once again. Suddenly, An finds herself standing before another handsome man, different from the one she met the first time. She realizes she wasn't dreaming and tells herself that this time she'll make a real wish come true. But the man responds out loud with a firm no, leaving her confused. He explains that she wants him to turn her into a beautiful woman, but he refuses because he doesn't like humans and doesn't enjoy helping them. Shocked, An asks how he knew what she was thinking. He tells her he's lived for 1,000 years, so of course he can read people easily. An pleads with him, saying she heard that messengers of beauty are supposed to help humans. He corrects her. That's wrong, and he's under no obligation to help her. He tells her to leave because he's busy. Feeling sad, An starts to walk away, but asks him about the other man who came through the same place, the one who accidentally swapped bags with her. The handsome stranger tells her to check the lost and found. She asks him for directions, then makes her way there, descending countless staircases until she finally arrives. The lost and found is filled with old, dusty objects piled high. To her surprise, She runs into the same man who had greeted her earlier. She explains that he was the one who told her to come here, but he looks puzzled. He doesn't remember her at all. An is stunned that he's already forgotten, but then he recalls she's looking for her bag. An feels a pang in her chest and mutters to herself that he remembered her bag, but not her. The young man interrupts her thoughts, telling her to follow him, and leads her deeper inside. He instructs her to look for her missing bag herself, since they don't have staff to do it for her. An has no choice but to begin searching through the dusty, forgotten piles on her own. An finds that everything in the lost and found is extremely old, so she asks how long they usually keep items. The young man tells her, unfortunately, they don't keep anything for more than 100 years. An is shocked and says all of these things are practically antiques. She asks what the newest item is, and he points to a very old box. Before he can warn her not to open it, An flips it open, only for a flock of doves to burst out. Terrified, she falls to the ground, scattering a pile of dusty objects until her clothes are completely covered in dirt. The young man hands her a device to clean her face and tells her to change her clothes. An goes into the restroom, washes her face, enjoying the clean feeling, and then puts on a very old dress. She comes out and tells him it doesn't look good on her. He bluntly agrees, saying it looks awful, and asks her to change it. She steps into another room, but instead of just changing, she suddenly finds herself transported into a memory from her school days. She enters a classroom and sees her desk with a note left on it by a classmate asking her to meet him in the garden in 5 minutes. In the garden, An sees her younger self standing with the boy. He asks if she was surprised by the letter, and she shyly admits she was very surprised. He then confesses that he really likes her. An, caught off guard, asks why her, and he says that to him, she is beautiful, and being around her all the time made him develop feelings. An's face lights up with joy and bashfulness. He asks her to go out with him, and she agrees, looking at him with genuine affection. But suddenly, their other classmates appear, mocking her. It's revealed they had placed a bet on how long it would take for An to agree to a relationship. The happiness on her face shatters in an instant, replaced by humiliation and heartbreak. Her classmates leave after cruelly wounding her feelings, making her feel like the ugliest girl in the world. An stands frozen, sobbing, watching herself get torn apart by everyone around her. Then she steps back through the door she had entered and asks the young man what that place was. He tells her it was the lost items storage. He asks if she found what she was looking for. An hesitates and asks what she's supposed to be looking for. He answers that she should be searching for her lost time. She doesn't understand what he means, insisting she's only here to find her bag. The young man explains that he's met many like her, people who always make the same mistake. They wish they could go back in time to fix their regrets, but even though they feel guilty, they don't actually grow or give themselves the chance to correct their mistakes in the future. An snaps back that he isn't human, so he has no right to judge people that way. He doesn't understand that life is harsh and never gives anyone everything they want, and that she's barely just trying to survive each day. He calmly asks why she doesn't truly try to survive, since from his perspective, she hasn't even tried to be beautiful. She just surrendered to what others say. An admits she wants to be beautiful, but doesn't know where to start. The young man tells her he'll help. He takes her back to the very first place they had been, chooses a set of makeup tools, and applies them to her. After a while, he places her in front of a mirror. An is stunned. Every imperfection on her face is gone, and she's as beautiful as the other girls. She can't believe it. She even pinches herself to check. When she looks back, the young man has vanished, leaving her breathless before her new reflection. An keeps searching for the young man to thank him, but she can't find him anywhere. Just as she's about to leave, she hears an alarm, and suddenly 4 young men appear, advancing toward her as if to arrest her. Terrified, An takes off running until a third stranger blocks her path, seizes her, and forces her into an interrogation room. People are watching her from behind glass, and she panics, pounding on the door. The investigator tells her to calm down, then sits across from her and asks her name. An nervously asks what she did to get arrested. He replies that it's clear she intends to deny everything. She tries to think of her mistake and remembers the 100-year-old perfume bottle she broke, realizing they must have taken her in because of that. She imagines herself spending the rest of her life working for them to pay it off, so she demands a lawyer. The investigator mocks her, saying human laws don't apply in their world. She asks what laws do apply, and he tells her she'll be interrogated and then given a summary of her sentence. Frightened, An asks who will judge her. He says their master. She pictures herself standing trial before a shadowy figure who sentences her to death as an executioner raises a sword to end her life. Snapping out of her imagination, she begs the investigator for help. Instead, he tells her to confess to stealing the jewelry. An is completely stunned, insisting she never stole jewelry and thought she was arrested for the perfume bottle. The investigator says he'll verify whether she's lying and takes her to the store where the theft occurred. There, An is searched, but nothing is found on her. She asks if there are security cameras to prove her innocence, but he tells her that at the exact time of the robbery, the cameras were under repair. That means, in their eyes, An must have known the cameras were under repair and deliberately chose that moment to steal. The investigator presses her, asking why she went back and forth twice unless she was planning the robbery. An insists she only returned because she wanted to swap the bag she was carrying for her own. He twists her words, saying that proves she also stole someone else's bag and that she's clearly an experienced criminal. An breaks down, protesting that she never stole anything. Then the witness from the jewelry store arrives. The moment he sees An, he claims she's the thief, saying he saw her himself. He explains to the investigator that while he was buying a ring for his girlfriend, a girl walked in, asked the clerk to throw away her gum in the trash, then took advantage of the distraction to steal everything and run. An insists he's lying because she never even entered the jewelry store. She reminds the investigator that he searched her and found nothing. She swears that if he actually finds stolen goods on her, she'll confess to being the thief. The investigator decides to open the bag she's carrying and asks for the passcode. An admits she doesn't know it because it isn't her bag. He forces it open with a metal rod, only for a blinding light to burst out from inside. Startled, he slams it shut immediately and demands to know where she got it. An explains that she mistakenly switched bags with a very handsome man she bumped into at the mall. The investigator is stunned. He tells her that she encountered the master himself and that the bag belongs to him. An is amazed and tells him the master even bought her a drink and sat with her. She then begs the investigator to go with her to the master directly so he can open the bag himself and reveal who the real criminal is. The man who had testified against An suddenly panics and confesses that he was the one who stole the jewelry. He even pulls all the stolen pieces from his pocket. The investigator is shocked, arrests the man, frees An, and apologizes for everything she's been through. He offers her a place to rest, but An refuses, saying she just wants to leave. The investigator smiles and says she has to return what she stole first. An, frustrated, insists she hasn't stolen anything, before he interrupts, telling her she stole his heart because he's never met anyone like her. An blushes with embarrassment as he gently places a beautiful necklace around her neck, asking her to take good care of it. He bids her farewell and walks away. An remembers she still needs to meet the master to return his bag and retrieve her own, so she rushes after the investigator to catch up. But suddenly, she finds herself back in the human world. Moon Young appears, asking where she keeps disappearing to. An notices in her hand a festival flyer with the faces of 3 young men, exactly the 3 she had encountered. Moon Young mocks her, saying she finally understands what An has been so busy with and taunts her further, asking if she really wants to join the contest just to be beautiful, because she'll never be beautiful and it would be easier for her to be reborn instead. Deeply hurt, An tells her to stay out of her life and walks away. She hides in the restroom, weighed down with sadness, but then she remembers the investigator placing the necklace around her neck. Suddenly, her phone buzzes with a message. It's a group chat with her coworkers. She sees Moon Young and her friend ridiculing her for wanting to enter the competition, saying they just hope she doesn't tell anyone she works at the same company as them because it would ruin their reputation. An storms out of the restroom, furious, blaming everything on the bag that dragged her into a dream she could never make real. She rips the necklace from her neck, ready to throw it away, when suddenly a 4th handsome young man grabs her hand. He begs her to come with him because he needs her. Holding her firmly, he leads her back to the magical wall. An resists, saying she doesn't want to go there again, but the young man pleads with her, insisting her help is vital. Just then, she sees Moon Young watching her with a mocking gaze. Remembering her cruel words, An decides to follow him. This time, the world beyond the wall is dark and nothing like before. Suddenly, 4 masked men appear, forcing the young man to hide with An until they pass. As she slips out, her shoe comes off, and when she goes back to retrieve it, one of the masked men spots her and charges forward. The young man quickly shields her with his jacket, and in an instant, they vanish, reappearing in another place. An asks who those men were. He explains they are messengers of evil, and they appeared because the barrier that separated them has weakened. That happens whenever humans lose faith faith that the messengers of beauty will help them. An realizes it's her fault. Her lack of trust weakened the barrier. The young man admits that's why he sought her out. They must protect their world before it collapses. Noticing she's still missing a shoe, he takes her to a shop filled with high-heeled shoes and asks her to choose a pair. But An refuses, saying her feet are ugly and heels would only make them stand out more. Suddenly, a violent earthquake shakes the ground, born from An's lack of confidence in herself and her disbelief in the messenger of beauty's guidance. She tells him the messengers of evil feed on her fears and apologizes, saying she really can't help, that she's not the right person for the job. Suddenly, the place shakes again. The young man runs off to check what's happening and reassures An, telling her not to be afraid because he will protect her no matter what. Feeling guilty, An decides to try to help. She slips on one of the heels he picked and steps out into the corridor. She spots one of the masked men coming down the stairs. Luckily, he doesn't see her, but she accidentally knocks her bag and someone among the masked men hears it and bolts after her. At the last moment, a messenger of beauty manages to rescue her, and An is so relieved she hugs him. She apologizes and tells him she's just happy to see him. He urges her to hurry and follow him. They stop in front of a door they must open, but it won't budge. An says they don't need the door because they can pass through the wall. Yet, the young man explains the magic of their world has weakened from the messengers of evil breaking in. An looks for a solution and notices a button by the door with the same symbol as her necklace. She quickly removes the necklace, fits it into the button, and the door opens. She asks if everything is back to normal, and he says not yet. They still have to open the master's bag. An says she doesn't know the passcode. He tells her there's no one else who can open it. She thinks hard, and then the festival sticker in her hand falls out. When she looks at the three young men pictured on it, she remembers the letter game she likes and takes the first letter of each of their names, turns them into numbers, and is able to unlock the bag. As soon as she unlocks it, a brilliant light bursts out, and suddenly An finds herself standing in the middle of the Secret Queen Makers competition. It's her turn to step onto the stage with the other contestants. Embarrassed and overwhelmed, she can't believe what's happening. She looks at the beautiful girls lined up beside her and at the audience staring at her with confusion. The host announces her name to everyone and asks her to join the lineup. He then reads out the application she submitted to enter the contest, which is written in coded letters. Before An can answer what they mean, Moon Young interrupts, taking the chance to speak for her. She smugly tells the host the letters mean An wants to be a princess too, since her name literally means princess. The crowd erupts in laughter, and the other contestants giggle as well. Then it's time to reveal the barefaced photos of each contestant. When An's school photo flashes on the big screen, showing her awkward and unattractive, the entire audience bursts into hysterical laughter. They point, mock, and ridicule her mercilessly. An crumbles, unable to believe her eyes. She falls from the stage in humiliation, and the crowd swarms around her, filming and laughing. Broken and overwhelmed, An screams at them to stop recording her. Suddenly, she wakes up. It was a nightmare. She's sitting on the company bus, the driver asking if her bad dream was really that awful. Relieved, An smiles faintly, glad it was only a dream, though still saddened that nothing had been real. Later, back at the shopping mall, she wanders through, gazing silently at the advertisements for the Secret Queen Makers beauty contest. An suddenly receives a message on her phone saying she's been accepted into the competition. She's stunned. She never even applied. Just then, Moon Young shows up, smugly asking if An got the acceptance text, revealing that she entered An into the contest herself. She tells her not to thank her just yet. Upset, An walks away without saying a word. The next day arrives, the day of the competition. All the other contestants are busy preparing, except An, who sits outside the shopping center, unwilling to go in. She dreads the ridicule she's sure she'll face, but then she remembers all the messengers of beauty she met, each encouraging her to face her fears and self-doubt. She recalls how her fear fed evil and gave it strength to destroy her. She remembers the investigator telling her he'd never met a girl like her, and the other young man who told her she wasted her life surrendering to others, words instead of trying to change. Gathering her courage, An decides not to give in. She heads into the shopping center, asks a stylist to do her makeup, then chooses clothes more elegant than the ones she normally wears. Walking through the mall, she suddenly spots the master, the same man who bumped into her the first time and accidentally swapped bags. She wants to ask him questions, but decides not to, fearing he might embarrass her. But the master calls her over himself, asking about her journey. An beams with joy, realizing everything she experienced was real, that she truly had met the Secret Queen Makers. She thanks him for everything he did for her, encouraging her to hurry to the competition. The master gives her a necklace with a gemstone as a gift. He tells her no jewel shines brighter than she does because she is genuine and nothing is more radiant than a real person. An thanks him and goes to prepare herself. Soon she enters the event hall, appearing in a stunning white dress that leaves the entire audience in awe of her beauty. Moon-young is shocked when she sees her, unable to believe this radiant woman is really her co-worker An. An steps confidently onto the stage and wins the competition. Moon-young is so stunned that she tumbles off the stage, mirroring the exact scene An once saw in her dreams. An rushes down to help her and escorts her out, since Moon-young can't walk properly. She even offers to take her to the hospital, but Moon-young rudely refuses, telling her to leave her alone. An, hurt, asks why she's hated her so much when she's never done anything to her. Moon-young admits that she used to be just like An, bullied for being overweight. To win approval, she forced herself to change. Bullying others made her feel like she belonged with the bullies instead of being their target. She says she sees her old self in An, the self she hates the most. An is shaken, but doesn't let the words affect her. Instead, she helps Moon-young return home safely. The next day, An is back at work, leading another group of visitors on a tour through the mall. She happily tells them about the places they'll explore together. The visitors are delighted, having recognized her as the winner of the beauty contest. As she continues, An notices one girl sitting apart from the group, quiet and withdrawn, a reflection of her former self. During the tour, An hands out festival stickers to the visitors, including the shy girl. She gently encourages her to open the mall's vault, telling her she has already chosen a special place where she'll make her payment, and promises a surprise will be waiting there. The girl lights up with excitement at the thought, and An smiles, walking alone through the shopping center with a new sense of peace and purpose. Suddenly, a very handsome young man notices her, and it seems like he recognizes her. The girls working in the shop immediately light up when they see him. He's their manager, and they're all smitten by him. An leaves the shop, but the manager follows her outside, only to realize she's disappeared. Out of nowhere, An appears behind him and asks what he wants from her, since she noticed he had been walking after her. Just then, his personal guards arrive, asking if there's a problem, and An is shocked to learn that he's actually the director of the entire shopping center. She quickly apologizes and asks if he knows her. He tells her he's the guy who bumped into her when she came out of the elevator, and admits he had been looking for her, though he couldn't recognize her right away because she had changed her appearance. An is stunned to discover that the director is the same master from the world of beauty. Overjoyed, she agrees to properly meet him, realizing she has finally found the beauty and love she had been searching for. At that moment, the shy girl An had noticed earlier walks to the spot An directed her to. There, she finds a bag sitting alone and stares at it curiously. Suddenly, the bag slides toward the magical wall. The girl grabs it quickly and steps through the wall, entering the hidden world. Her life begins to change because An had chosen to help her rather than hate or bully her, remembering that she too once desperately needed someone's help.